for the Reading in Teens discussion for UAE National Reading Month, March 2021. Welcome, I'm Zayed and I'm the MC and moderator. And first up would be My Reading Journey by Lena.
Okay, hello, I'm Lena and I'll be presenting first. I'll just share my screen quickly. Okay. So here's my presentation for the month of reading, March 2021. So this is about reading and me. My name is Lena. So how did I start reading? Well, my mom is a librarian, so I was always encouraged to read pretty much from the beginning. And because of that, I was always surrounded by books all the time. So it's pretty simple. I just naturally started reading. I picked up a book and I just was kind of sucked into the world of reading. Why do I like reading? Books take me around the world to new places, even places that don't exist. It's a relaxing pastime and it lets me take my mind off work. As a student, during the week, I'm always thinking about the next deadline or the next test or assessment. So reading and kind of going somewhere better or more relaxing where I don't have to think about that is really enjoyable for me. And it's also exciting to watch a plot unfold. Here are some reading tips. You might think reading doesn't need tips. It seems like a pretty simple activity. But if you're reading things you don't like or you're not planning properly, reading can become more of a chore than a hobby. So here are some tips. Plan ahead and make reading a regular habit. Find what books and genres you enjoy. Don't read books you're not enjoying, and keep a reading log. Keeping a reading log is really good because maybe you read this great book and you want to reread it, but you don't remember what it's called. Well, a reading log can help you keep track of what you've read. And you can write the name of the author, name of the book, and I think it's really nice looking back and seeing all the books you've read and how far you've come. So here are my favorite books and a few recommendations. So starting with my first one, I have Bird by Crystal Chan. This is a young adult fiction, and there's a few reasons I really like this book, and I've listed them here. It has relatable characters that are flawed and have their own stories that are going on. And I really like that when you're going through this book, you're not just in the main character's world, but you're in the main characters and the people around her. You know, you learn about the other characters and their diverse backgrounds. And I also like that there's a very engaging writing style. So I really encourage you to read this book. It's really easy and simple to read, but it really sucks you in so quickly. And that's why I like it a lot. My second book is Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. This is also a fiction young adult, so already a pattern emerging through my favorite books. Like the previous one, this also has a diverse and vivid cast of characters. It deals with loss in an elegant and heartwarming way, and I like that it has the found family trope. So our main protagonist here starts the book by losing her family, and it's such a tragic event, and we really feel the protagonist's pain and her loneliness. And I love that through the book, she meets new people, and people of all backgrounds, ages, occupations that you wouldn't really think that would be in your life, but she finds them and they kind of make her own family. I also like that it switches perspectives between the different characters, so we can see what life looks like through different eyes. Next, I have Sunshine Trilogy by Paige Mackenzie. So this is just the first book of the three, The Haunting of Sunshine Girl. It has an exciting plot that keeps you reading. I usually don't read trilogies because I find that the plot usually drops off or gets boring by the second or third book. But I really like this book as the plot keeps building through the second and third book, and it actually is interesting and it makes you want to read more. The story gets more interesting as the story progresses, as I just said, and there's a lots of fun and vivid characters, and they're sure to give you a nice experience. Next, I have The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. This has been more advanced, mature reading. It's a historical fiction about the building of the Burma Railway during World War II. I like this book because it differs really differently from the books we just read. This world is heavily flawed, and so are the characters. And it doesn't avoid the grotesque and paints a vivid world. I like this book because a lot of the times you may not necessarily agree with the characters. They make decisions that sure make sense from their perspective, but from the readers, it just doesn't seem right. But I like it because it challenges your perspective and gives you new ideas. And finally, I have Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. This is a dystopian fiction. I like this book because it reflects on modern problems. It takes them to extremes. It feels outlandish, but also really weirdly close to home. A lot of the settings and the problems in this book just seem so out of this world. Like if you read it, you would think, how can I relate to this? It's so beyond me. But reading this, I found there's bits and pieces that kind of were similar to problems in our modern day. And that's why I really like this, because it takes our normal everyday problems, takes them to the absolute extremes, so that it feels very unfamiliar, but also familiar. And thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, we'll have a breakout room discussion soon, so you can ask them then. Thank you.
Next up, we have Young Reader by Lubna.
So this is my presentation. My name is Zubna, and this is my presentation. UAE month of reading. How I got interested into reading. Before I got interested into reading, I actually hated reading books for some reason, because I think it's because I thought it was boring. But at age 6, I got more motivated to read. So I tried reading, and it wasn't that hard, especially because in school I was already learning how to read, and I just kept getting better day by day. Though it took me a long time to finish my first book, I did manage to finish it. My first book, so this is like the cover of the book. It's called Yuck. I remember my first book was named Yuck. It was about a boy who lived with his sister and mom, and it's like magic, and he just kept making potions and making weird stuff. And this boy loved slime too, and he loved tricking and pranking his sister, and the whole book was about slime, magic tricks, and him pranking his sister. I did like the book at first time I read it, but now I don't really understand why I actually liked it. My favorite book is a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. It's called Dog Days, and it's about the main character Gregory and his family adopting a dog, and they went through a lot of chaos while taking care of this dog. I like this book because it's hilarious and funny, and I liked it so much that I kept reading it again and again whenever I finish it. So here's the cover of the book, the yellow one. So people always say reading is boring, reading is boring, reading a book is boring, but you really haven't read a book yet. And many people say movies are better than books, but you can always imagine the scenes in the books in your mind, and that's just more experiencing and more fun, in my opinion. People also always say that reading makes you more tired, but actually reading strengthens your mind. So this is about a competition that I joined, I think in uh, year 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 5, but then I stopped joining. This isn't the first time I joined something like this. I did join the Arabic reading competition for Sheikh Mohammed in year 1, 2, 3 and 4, but I stopped joining. The only time I actually won something was in second grade, and I won a trophy and a medal. But I think it was just like a participation medal or something. This year I joined another competition, and it's basically the same as the other competition, but it was a little harder. And currently I'm practicing for the final round. So this is Lean's part. So Lean wrote down, I was kind of motivated to read my whole life because my parents are teachers, so I first started reading in English, and it was such a good experience. After a couple of books, I started reading in Arabic, and I have to admit, I liked reading in Arabic more, so I decided to join some Arabic competitions to gain bigger motivation. So thank you for listening. Any questions? If you do, you could just ask in the breakout rooms later.
Next up, we have Maha with her presentation.
Hi, I'm going to be screen sharing now. So reading and discussion by Maha for Reading Month. My presentation. About me. My name is Maha and I'm 13 years old. I'm from Pakistan, Canada, and some of my hobbies are gymnastics, cooking, and reading. Why I love reading. It takes you to a place way past your imagination, it expands your imagination, expands your vocabulary, and you can bond with others about your favorite books and your love of reading. And lastly, it's a great way to spend your free time. So, um, here are some here are some of my books, and this is one of my books or series that I really enjoy reading. This is kind of a summary of it. So Harry loses his parents to an evil wizard. His aunt and uncle adopt him, and they were very abusive towards him. And he received an acceptance letter to a school called Hogwarts Witchcraft and Wizardry. He gets sorted into a Hogwarts house. He meets his two best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. He goes on many adventures with his friends, trying to not get killed by um, an evil wizard called Lord Voldemort. And these are some of the covers on the books. And my second book is Airhead by Meg Cabot. Emerson Watts and Nikki Howard are polar opposites. Emerson is a geeky superbrain tomboy who couldn't care less about her style or how she looked, and Nikki is a girly girl supermodel sensation, the most famous airhead, and she loves styling herself and creating new looks. Emerson and Nikki have never really crossed paths in the past, never really cared to talk to one another, but a freak accident will throw them both in different worlds that they aren't familiar with. Thank you.
And now it's my turn to share. UAE Month of Reading, Young Reader. I was kind of motivated to read my whole life, so I started reading in English, and it was such a good experience. After a couple of books, I started reading in Arabic. More so, I decided to join some Arabic competitions to gain a bigger motivation. This year, I participated in an Arabic competition. It was about reading three stories and getting tested on them. If you won, then you could go to the next stage. My team and I won the first stage. After that, there will be a second stage, but they will give you two more stories plus the stories that we have already read. When it was the time to get tested on the questions, I was nervous to lose. When we got tested on the questions, they will they will say the results after 2 days. After 2 days, poorly, they said that we didn't win. I also like reading in English, and there are many books that I have read, such as Dogman, Harry Potter, and more. I really like reading comedy, manga, and manga is an anime, stories, or books. Thank you for listening. Okay, now is the time if you have any questions to type your questions in the chat box. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, this is Melanie. I'm a technical moderator. I wanted to let you know that there's a question in the chat, and it's from Maha, one of our attendees, and her microphone is unmuted, by the way. Not unmuted, but talking is permitted for everyone in attendance now. So the question from Maha was that she joined in high school, and Maha, maybe you want to tell us about a competition you participated in high school. It was very nice of you to join us today. Do you want to tell us about your experience being in a reading competition?
I was always in high school joining reading competitions where they give us these small books. We have to fill in them and read multiple books and their summaries and what the book was about and the author and all. So I used to do that in high school, but I never like made it to the finales or something. Like I just joined, and then because of the school, I just quit or I just wait, and then the numbers are filled, so I don't go. They say I don't have to, I can't go because there's a lot of girls going out, so I stay. So now I don't know where do they join competitions, because I would love to join competitions now after finishing high school.
That's a really good question. Are you a Zayed University student currently?
Yes.
Do you know about the reading competition with the reading club?
No, I don't know that. I didn't know that there was a reading club.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm the faculty advisor for the reading club. And yeah, you're right. There's not many adult competitions, but there is one with the university. And it just, I think, opened registration, and they announced that the book they're reading is The Alchemist. Have you read The Alchemist?
Yes.
Yeah, we all have. It's such a good book. So it's something easy, not easy, but like, you know, it's a short novel. So it
Yeah.
should be fun to quiz on. I'll send a registration link to your email. I've got all the registrants' emails, so I'll send a follow-up email with the YouTube link and the reading club registration in case the three of you are students who are interested in joining that.
Okay, I would love that. Thank you.
Raja says me too. Cool. So do you guys have, I think everyone here from looking at the poll, you've all read Harry Potter. You like humorous fiction, romance, nonfiction. I'm sorry, there should be breakout rooms if you guys want to talk, but I'll just mute myself and all of you feel free to start a discussion. I know that you're avid readers. Maybe Lena wants to talk about what she's currently reading.
Yeah, I can do that. Just give me a second. Okay, so yeah, I can talk about what I'm currently reading. If any of you want to butt in or just kind of, give your thought, then just unmute and we'll be happy to talk. So actually, the book I'm currently reading is actually a funny story. It's a book I've been searching for almost maybe, I'd say 4 years. So right now I'm reading Philip Reeve, A Web of Air, the second book of his Fever Crumb series. But before I talk about the book, I want to briefly talk about why have I been searching for this book for 4 years? What's so special about it? Well, it's because when I used to live in my hometown in Canada, I went to the public library a lot and I found this book and I really enjoyed it. All I remember is that I just really enjoyed the book. I loved everything in it and I loved everything about it. And I just knew like a few vague details here and there. The last name of one of the characters is Thursday. That's all I knew. And for a long time, I just had it on the tip of my tongue, the name. What was it? And for a long time, I was searching for it. And funnily enough, on my school's book recommendation, the first book that was listed was A Web of Air. And I read the description and I was like, this is so similar. Is this the book? So I borrowed it and I finished the first book already, which is Philip Reeve Fever Crumb. That's just the name. And it's the first book of the series. And now I'm on to the second book. And it's really nice, having these kind of like memories of what I liked so much and kind of seeing it back in retrospect. So yeah, that's what I'm reading now. And if any of you want to talk about what you're reading, I'd love to hear. And I'm sure everyone else would too.
Maha Salam, do you want to tell us what you're reading currently? School books?
I am reading. No, I'm trying to stay out of school books because we have midterms, so I'm searching for escape. So I'm reading The Silent Patient. Silent Patient, yeah. It has been a lot. A lot of people were talking about this, so I thought I'd give it a try.
Well, what's it about?
It's a crime mystery.
Alex Michaelides. It's a Greek author.
Hello.
Hi, who's talking?
Hi. Rhoda.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hi. I wanted to share what I'm reading right now. The book I'm reading right now is Pride and Prejudice. Yes, I know. It's the first time I've read, like this is the first time reading this book, but I've watched the movie. But I'm thinking of pausing on that, and I'm really, really interested in Anne Frank's book, The Diary of a Young Girl, and I was wondering if anyone has read this book.
Anybody who's under 40 want to talk? I read it and I love it, Rhoda. If you ever want to
Really?
talk about, oh my goodness. You know what? Okay, actually being an adult, I can talk about it because I avoided it for many years. I don't know if you guys figured it was heavy and avoided it. I mean, did you avoid things like Pride and Prejudice and Frank because they were classics?
Not really. I actually really like the classics. I'm really getting into it right now.
You're much smarter than me. You're much braver than me. I figured I was bored or something, but you know, do you like The Diary of Anne Frank? Are you enjoying it?
No, I'm gonna start it. I still didn't, but I just wanted to ask around.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I can say I loved it. Like my heart is beating faster speaking about this. It's a true diary of a young girl. She is 12 or 13 years old, and she's living in captivity because of World War II, not because of pandemic, but because she's forced to hide. And her diary, it's her real life diary. It breaks your heart because you know she's going through so much, but everyone who's 12 or 13 is having a hard time. She's just having an even harder time. I mean,
Yeah, I remember them saying that they would like hide in cabinets or like closets or something.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I heard stories here and there.
Yes, during World War II, when
Mhm.
Amsterdam was invaded, they had to hide, and they nailed their children behind walls. I mean,
Mhm.
so it is really, really heart-wrenching, but it's historical, it's real, it's a diary. It helps you to better understand the era, and I think you'll love it. I mean, I hope you love it. A lot of it's really sad, but in the end, you realize I'm just like Anne Frank. We're all like her, you know, we have thoughts and feelings like, what's happening? Am I going to be an adult? And oh, it's just such a great book.
Ooh, I want to start reading it now.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't bum you out, because I know this is like sort of a hard time for everybody already, but hopefully her spirit will help you feel good.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you for sharing. You're reading some good books, ladies. And I looked at the silent patient here. You guys have like, these are just sitting on your shelves?
Yes. My
Oh.
sisters used to read it, so.
So I wonder if like, are you reading ebooks or you're just relying on the print books that are on your shelves?
I rely on the books on the shelves. I hate ebooks. I hate looking at the screen.
Yeah.
I don't like to.
I am the exact opposite.
Oh, really? Oh
Like I love reading physical books, but now when pandemic started, I started reading a lot of ebooks, and now I am used to reading them. Like I would love to get that physical copy as soon as I get my hands on it, but I'm reading ebooks right now.
Like if they're out of chocolate ice cream, you'll eat vanilla. Like it's only because that's what you can get.
Like at the beginning, I thought that this is my only option. Like when COVID was like spreading a lot, so I started reading ebooks. Now I'm like just combining ebooks a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I would.
Go ahead.
I would wait for the chocolate to come back.
No, and I'm spending so much money at Kinokuniya, and I work in the library. I mean, this is a rough time for people who refuse to read electronic. But you know, I can understand if Maha's reading a lot. Like I know a friend who reads a book a day. Don't ask me how. Sometimes over the weekend, she'll read 2 or 3 books a day. It's like, are you really reading them? Some people just burn through books really fast, and she gets these like $1 Kindle books. So maybe that's what some people have to do to, you know, get by. They want to read a lot. But if you guys, I see you're all like ZU students, you actually could order a bunch of books on our catalog, and you need a COVID negative test to come to the library to pick them up. But so far it's just faculty who are coming to pick up books. But if, you know, there's so many good books here in the library. I just checked out a couple new ones today. They're still getting print books. You guys can definitely come in and pick up your material. You aren't allowed to like sit here or hang around, but it's possible to come pick up our books and take them for, you know, 6 months or something like that. And the drop box is much easier than the pickup. You can drop them off outside the campus. I shared the link in the chat with you if anybody wants to order any books. Like you could also make a meeting with us to, you know, help you order the books.
I never knew that.
It's sort of a secret. They really don't want us encouraging people. In fact, my boss is probably in on this chat. Hopefully I'm not saying the wrong thing. We're not trying to really encourage people to come on campus, but you know, if you need to load up on books, it's probably worthwhile. It's better than them just sitting here. But yeah, it's like a secret. Faculty are checking out a lot of books, not a lot of students.
Okay, Miss, what are your book recommendations?
Oh man.
What is like one book you read and you loved?
You know what's funny is Lena did a presentation on Oryx and Crake, and I just finished the Oryx and Crake series like last week. It's Margaret Atwood. If you've heard of The Handmaid's Tale, she has this post-apocalyptic, as Lena just mentioned, Oryx and Crake is a fantasy world of dystopian fiction. Now that's totally different than classics. There's so many classics that I could recommend to you, but it sounds like you don't need recommendations. Do you have a recommendation for us of like an easy to read Catholic classic book?
Not really. I just started reading, so.
Oh, so you just,
yeah.
For fun? Like you just.
Yeah, for fun. Like I was, at the beginning, I was keeping it safe and I was like reading books that were very trendy. And then I got into like the more older books.
That's good that you're brave and trying new things. There's just so much out there. But you know what? Like Lena's presentation, don't finish it if you don't like it. That's what I do. Like you can't waste your time with a book that isn't doing anything good for you.
Yeah. No, some of them, like I started reading the book about Stephen Hawking.
Oh.
I kid you not. I read that 3 times and I would always get in the middle and I would be so confused and I would like read it again. So I stopped because like it's too much.
Yeah. You know, what is it? Plato's Republic. I must have started that. Oh, and Ulysses by James Joyce. Those are 2 books where I've read the first 100 pages like 10 times.
Same here.
If you really want to finish it, one day you'll get through it, but I guess I need a cliff notes or some sort of an explanation that goes with it. But yeah, if you don't love it, don't finish it, because you know, books are supposed to usually help you learn something, not just make you angry. So anybody else want to share what they're reading? Anybody have any, you know, advice or new books or old books? Lubna has suggested a bunch of children's books to me that I've read. I read Dog Days last summer. It was actually really good. I can't believe I hadn't read many Diary of the Wimpy Kid books. They're really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much more, right? I mean, there's 1,000 books in that series. You'll always have something fun to fall back on if you end up learning about these characters.
I think I finished them all, but I didn't read I think a new book came out, or 3 books came out, but I didn't buy them or anything.
Ah, you need your aunt to stop by and bring you some new books. Rawaya says that Diary of a Wimpy Kid books are the reason why she started reading. Okay, so Rawaya, do you want to talk to us about like how you got into Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and have you read all of them? Tell us about it.
I remember it was in middle school, and at that time I didn't really like books because most of the books that I would like look at, they never had any like pictures or anything like that. They were too thick, so I never really got into reading. But I remember my cousin once borrowed it from someone, and when I just flipped through it, like I was really surprised because it was so different. Like the font used, it looked more like a handwriting. The fact that it had like pictures and stuff, so it basically instantly drew me in. And I liked how like the language was understandable. It didn't use too many difficult or long words. So it basically just like pulled me in, and I kept reading it. Like whenever my cousin wasn't reading it, I would borrow it from her and read it until I finished the whole thing. And then I ended up ordering the other books from Amazon, and I just continued from there. Like I kept reading Diary from Pickett, and then I started reading Dork Diaries and Big Nate, and I started like expanding my collection, reading more books. So it just started the whole thing for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I didn't realize that. I guess I wasn't a teen librarian during the Diary of a Wimpy Kid era. Been in the university looking at academic books a lot, but that's so wonderful to hear. I'm glad that, I mean, I find that character, I shouldn't say it, but he's like a little brother. Is that how you feel?
Honestly, I liked how his character wasn't like perfect. Like there were times where he did like a bunch of bad things, and he wasn't like this perfect person. He wasn't like a great role model, and I liked that about him. The fact that he wasn't perfect and he wasn't like meant to do everything right. He wasn't always like the best person. I
Yeah,
felt it was interesting.
yeah, he's so bad, but you're still sympathetic. You're like, well, he doesn't mean to be so bad.
Exactly. Like somehow, despite the things that he does, you still continue rooting for him somehow.
He stole from the grandma in Dog Days. Like he went over and tried to mow her lawn and not mow the lawn, just take the money.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, you're reminding me of the language. That is what makes people really want to get into a book. If it's not difficult. Have you tried or heard about A series of unfortunate events.
I heard about it, but I never read it.
You know, they're written for little kids, like not, I want to say from 6 to 15. That's the age range they're going for, like tweens and early teens. And the content is so dark and so grim. Like these kids, their parents are murdered, and then there's an evil uncle who's trying to abduct them. And it's just really dark, but it's also funny, like really funny. Has anyone here read it?
I
I
think
haven't
I
heard
only
of it.
Okay, so nobody else jumped onto that. I ended up reading it just because like there was a movie and there was a lot of hype around it, and I thought, okay, what is this? But the language is a little bit of a far reach. Like even when I read it in my 20s, I had to use the dictionary, which was nice to have that sort of little challenge. Like you're enjoying a book, you're reading through, and then you realize, wait, I don't know what this word means. But they actually sometimes explain the word in the context, so you don't even have to look it up. So if you're looking for like maybe a leap into something that's also really fun, it's literally like watching a movie. And there were movies, but the movies aren't even as good as the books. The illustrations in the books are way better.
Yeah, I'll put it on my list. I'll definitely keep it in mind.
Oh, good. I hope you try it and I hope you like it. Does anybody want to talk about Harry Potter? Like, do you like the books better than the movie? I'll bet you guys will all say you like the books better.
Yeah, I definitely like the books better.
Yeah. So why is that?
I think when it was the books, it's just because the movies kind of just like actors, but for the books it's kind of the actual author of the book. Like she spelled like all of the true like exact words she was feeling. It was just really, I think the book is just more interesting to read. It's just funner. And I think that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I definitely agree because I feel like in most cases when books are translated into movies, they miss a lot of like details and a lot of parts. So it's just not the same. Sometimes the story doesn't even make a lot of sense in some cases.
Yeah, like bad editing. They leave out important content.
Exactly.
Raja, were you gonna talk?
Also for the book and movie thingy, it's kind of different because sometimes when they recreate books to movies, it's like the author, if the author is even included in the making of the movie, which sometimes the author isn't, like it's in full control of like directors and producers, which you don't know if like it just wouldn't be the same if it was the actual author like directing everything and doing everything. And also like this moving a script from like a whole book, it really changes like the whole perspective of what's going on in the movie and everything. Sometimes you can't even fit all of what's happening in a book in a like two hour movie because the book is like so long and so interesting.
Did you guys read The Cursed Child? That was written as a screenplay or a stage play. Rawaya says
Yeah,
she.
I heard it was like, cause I kind of got into Harry Potter from my older cousin, and when I read The Cursed Child, it was kind of like it was a script rather than a book, which was really interesting.
Did you finish it or was it too hard to read like that?
Cause I think I was kind of young. I never really like went back to reading it, but it seemed really interesting when I first started it. I was really interested in how all the other books were like actual like books, but this one was kind of like a script.
Did you watch the movie? Or was it
I
only a stage play?
um I think there might be a movie. I'm not sure, but I think there is a movie. But um yeah,
You know what's funny is because I never finished the book, or okay, I finished the book and there was some kind of big battle, which I didn't follow that well because it was a screenplay. A kid told me one time, oh, but Hermione becomes the president. I'm like, what? President of what? I really need to go back and reread it because I'm missing some major parts of the Harry Potter story now. I mean, I want to know what Hermione's up to. Think we should probably all like get together and talk about that at another point so we can like make sure that everyone understands what happened in The Cursed Child. So, you know what I think is the difference between a book and a movie is that I'm never gonna like what the people who designed the movie thought in my imagination. Like, you know, the night bus experience and the pensive, and even when they make a phone call in the toll booth, I felt like, oh man, the way I read that was so much better than the way the director did it. Maybe that's also what you guys were saying, like Maha and Rauda and Rawaya. You probably were saying the same type of thing, but I just figured they're never gonna make a movie that was as good as my first reading of the book. So that's why they'll never compare for me.
It's always like different when you read and when you watch a movie based on someone else's perspective, because it's like you read it and you imagine like the atmosphere, everything you imagine it's different than when you see it visually. Like they can't put what is inside your brain in the screen, and they never meet what's in your brain and put it on the screen. So it's way more different.
You made me think, do you guys think one day there will be a technology that does that?
I don't know. I prefer having
Maybe.
my brain. I prefer having my mind as it because it would be scary if there was something like this.
Oh man, but you know, okay, for example, as a librarian, I always wish that people could convey their true question in a more clear way than words. Because sometimes people will come in and spend 10 minutes telling me what they want, but they're not really telling me what they want. I was just hoping that one day there was some sort of telepathic technology that gets us there, that they can clearly, I mean, not just language barriers, but the concept would be far more clear if they could, I don't know, invent some new gadget. So, okay, so we're reading print books, and, you know, I guess a lot of the ZU students are doing midterms. So thank you for being part of this session. And we just had Miriam join us. Okay, so Miriam's a little bit late, but I allowed her talking permission. So now she's one of us. Miriam, do you want to, you're here after the presentations and after most of the discussion. We were talking about books we're currently reading. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about a book that you've read recently or one of your favorite books? She's like, nah, I just want to be quiet. That's quite all right too. So how has reading changed your life? I mean, do you guys ever read nonfiction, or do you feel like fiction makes you more successful at reading for school?
Personally, I feel like fiction is easier to read, especially like in one or two sittings. Like it's easy to read a very large part of the book. But for nonfiction, it usually takes me a very long time because I have to read and kind of like process the information. So usually I don't really read a lot of nonfiction because it kind of feels like very information heavy. So even after I finish the book, I don't necessarily retain all of the things that I read. So it kind of feels pointless for me.
I hear you. Sometimes it can be too challenging and not worthwhile, but I can think of maybe 5 or 10 nonfiction books that I've read that were just so important. You know, things that really changed my life that I'm so glad that I took the time to get through. Like even informational books about plants. I mean, if you've retained just a little bit of information, like 1 or 2 chapters from nonfiction, that could, you know, benefit you.
If you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them.
Oh, thank you. Of course, none comes to mind at this very moment, but you know, Like, let's say you're in the library browsing and you realize I need to find new recipes. You can look at these beautiful books we have from Thailand and Lebanon, and the recipes in them sometimes, like in these newer, beautiful, colorful books, they'll have a whole story about like where this spice came from. And you know, there's so much nonfiction that people probably need to give a chance to, but as you guys say, it's a little intimidating. You feel like you're not going to get much out of it. You worry that it's going to waste your time. So like, for example, we have all these healthy books. I ordered these just before the pandemic, and we've got books about like having a positive attitude and, you know, the happiness theme that we're going with in the UAE. A lot of these, they're about self-improvement and self-help, and really you could read just half of it and feel like you've had something, you know, change in your life.
For me, when I started reading, what got me into reading was nonfiction books. Like I would read self-development books, and I think in high school I needed these self-development books, so I was motivated more to go to school, to finish my work, and know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that I'm planning for my future. I think it was important for me to learn that from high school. So I'm happy that I started with non-fiction books.
So can you recommend one that you enjoyed?
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. That's what I started with. And then from then I started reading others. Like they're Arabic books. They're so like beneficial, and it helps you develop yourself and sometimes manage your time. And yes, yeah.
Yeah, those sort of like time management books. In fact, those, do you read those cover to cover, or do you just pull out what you think is going to help you?
Sometimes it's like what will help me. So there is a book called The Distraction Trap. It's like tell us that technology is like sometimes is distraction to us instead of being of helping us and getting our work done. So at that time it also helped me realize to separate my work from my life. Like sometimes technology can be like distracting, can distract us from getting into our life and getting things done like actually. So that was a great book that I read about nonfiction, under nonfiction.
I am so sorry, but you realize the irony here that as you're speaking, I am trying my best to listen and just understand what you're saying, but I ended up looking up all the books you're mentioning. The Distraction Trap is also an ebook that we have here in the library. And if you're recommending it, maybe some people, if you have a Zayed University account, if you're like a child of someone who's at the university, or if you're a student, then you can actually download or check out this book for 3 weeks. So we have The Distraction Trap, How to Focus in a Digital World. And the irony is it's an ebook, so then you might get distracted. That's why a lot of people don't like an ebook. They end up feeling like they could get a notification. They'll feel distracted from what they're reading. So it's possible that maybe you just want to stick to print. Did you read this in print, Maha?
Yes, it was in print. But after this book, I limited my notifications, so it will teach you something.
Oh, okay. You got the right balance.
Yeah, I rarely get to notifications. I like limited it a lot. I read it in high school and I like implementing it until now.
You are really a power user. That's really smart of you to like organize your life like that. You know, this is a book I've bought twice in the past few months as a gift. I think this is a nonfiction biography about one of our new people who are in office in the US. Like I'm American, but I haven't been paying too much attention to politics because it's sort of like upsetting. But this woman is like an amazing crusader. She became, she was a grassroots organizer. Now she's a congresswoman for Minnesota. So this is the type of thing that where I need to give it a chance. I need to get into it and read it, especially since I bought it as a gift for some people. There's times when like you really should Yeah, like dig into a nonfiction, even if it feels like it's not going to benefit you right away. Does anybody else want to recommend nonfiction or historical fiction? Has any? Oh yeah, actually the one Lena shared. Lena, you've been quiet. Do you want to talk about some other historical fiction or any nonfiction recommendations?
I actually, well, like none can really come up, can come to my mind right now. But I think that nonfiction, I think that reading about subjects you're interested in, like plants, cooking. Like I know for me, when I was younger, I was obsessed with having a cat, so I just read a lot of nonfiction about cats. But I think that reading nonfiction about topics you enjoy can be really fun, you know, to learn new facts you didn't know and to expand your knowledge.
Yes. So I'm looking at the one in the chat too, Cradle of Freedom. Stephanie, do you want to talk about that one?
I was assigned to read it during my graduate school, and I bought the book and we were supposed to read it through the semester, and it was so good I read it in 2 days before the class started. His writing, he's a historian, and he writes historical, you know, nonfiction, but it's written so well, it reads like fiction. His writing is just amazing, and it's a really good book if you like historical fiction. He has a lot of firsthand experience with a lot of the civil rights movement key players. He for example, he was part of a group of people who showed Martin Luther King around Montgomery. He was in Montgomery and attending college when George, get his name, the really, anyway, if you're not familiar with American history, then the name won't matter anyway, but it's a really, really great book.
I like what you said, it's nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. That has been something that I've noticed too. If you're reading a really good nonfiction book, you don't even notice that it's a real event. The person is just so good at writing in a clear, smooth way that you don't even think about the fact that it was nonfiction.
Yeah, and I don't particularly care for nonfiction books, but he's such a great writer. I love reading his work.
Huh. Now I'm going to have to be challenged. I'm going to look up some of the books I've read that were nonfiction, but I didn't even notice it. Oh, okay. I'm thinking of this one guy. He wrote this, oh no. You see, that's why I usually look things up. I can't remember them right away. The guy who wrote the book about Mormons. Oh, Into Thin Air. This one is another one. Okay, John Krakauer is a journalist, and he does this research, and you know, usually research is not your first choice for just reading for fun, but this guy did all this research on a guy who went missing when trying to oh wait, this is a different one. This is his research about a Mount Everest disaster. This guy is such a good storyteller that you think that you're reading a fiction story. It's like first person narrative, fun, smooth, easy to read. So yeah, definitely there is good nonfiction out there. Unfortunately, I'm not doing a fantastic job of giving you the exact titles at the moment. So ladies, we're almost up to our 6 o'clock time. Do we have any other final things we want to chat about? Layla, do you have anything? You're the host. Maybe you have some final notes. I don't know. Any observations or comments? I should tell you guys that there is a month of reading photo and video competition. due in 2 days, but you could just easily send a photo of yourself reading, or maybe a cute sibling reading, or maybe your cat with a book or something. You can send a video or a photo. I'll take this YouTube video, I'll send you guys the link. Actually, there was a lot more people participating today than yesterday. There was just 2 people participating in the boys chat. Do any of you mind if this video is posted on the ZU Library YouTube channel?
I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I don't mind either.
Cool, thank you guys. I don't know if anyone will ever even watch it, but if they do, maybe they'll learn about some good books. So I will wish you a happy Ramadan really early. I know you guys are preparing for Ramadan, and wish you good luck in your midterms. And I thank all our presenters. I know that you worked really hard on your presentations, and I enjoyed hearing them. And thanks to our audience for joining us and participating in this month of reading event. I hope that you found it to be useful, and happy reading, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Masalama.
Thank you so much.
Salama.
Bye.